Namaskar. My name is Saurabh Nanda, and today's episode of Such Conversations Matter, I have invited Mickey Chen from Singapore. Mickey is this young, full of energy entrepreneur who's managing three startups. She is originally from the Netherlands. Her mom is from Nepal, her dad is from China, and they moved to the Netherlands when she was very young. She has lived and worked in the US, in Ireland, in Taiwan, and most recently, Singapore. So there are so many things that we're going to discuss here about how a global nomadic entrepreneur thinks and works and what they can contribute to the society and how the world is changing towards this new global movement where people from across the world don't really think twice before moving out of their country and going and settling somewhere else to start working. So, hi Mickey, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
All good. Yeah, but it's really hot and humid here. And
Same.
same. Well, that's good to know that we're not the only people suffering in the world right now. So
Suffering is a big word.
for me, it's not. I mean, you should come here and visit sometime. You'll know what I'm feeling.
Okay.
I'm completely anti-heat. All right. So, Mickey, thank you so much for taking out time and doing this interview. I know how busy you are, and that's exactly where we'll start the interview. Tell us about Minute, and then I'm going to ask you more questions about it later.
Sure. So Minute is my latest startup. It's a tech startup, and it is a digital platform where we connect SMEs across the globe with students from top universities also across the globe. And so these students perform remote tasks, very project based. It can be as simple as write me a vacancy for this internship position, but take it a step further and actually screen the candidates and make a first kind of short list of 20 qualified candidates, move on. Maybe you want to transform the entire onboarding process. It can be anything: HR, finance, marketing, sales. So that's what we're doing, and that's something that in COVID-19 works very well. Obviously, people are getting very used to remote work. That kind of digital transformation, if you will, that we're already there. For many companies, it was kind of a forced step, right, if you will, but it's a forced step in the right direction. I think it's a great development. So
That's very interesting. I mean, so the first question that comes to my mind is how will you manage all these separate functions? You know, you talked about so many functions that your freelance students can manage. Is there a template of profiles that you have, or is there a set of guidelines that you give to the students? Okay, this is what you need to do. How do you manage it?
That's a very good question, and that's also the $1,000,000 question. That we're a new startup, right? So we're just trying to explore and see what works and what doesn't work. We're actually in the middle of a pilot right now to have a look at, what does HR work, and yet in what format? Do students need more or less training? So during that pilot is very very hands-on. Got a ton of resources from us because we really want to be on top of things and see how does this work. This is a very new concept, right? And especially in the new world that we're living in, you really need to fully understand what's going well and what's not going well, and then act on that instantly. You can't wait even a day; it's too late, right? So it takes a lot of resources, definitely. The idea is to kind of move away from it all and have that platform kind of work in itself, if you know what I mean. Kind of, using AI, you just post your task, and it will automatically pull up a list of qualified students with their rate. They're available. Here's their, whatever they're studying, wherever they're studying. And you can just, in a matter of clicks, we'll use automated messages to very easily create a conversation. And that shouldn't take too much time, but we're definitely still kind of looking at what works and what doesn't work.
Wow, that you put it so simply, and I think everyone who listens to this might be thinking, oh, this is not very hard. But I can understand exactly the complications that are going on. So, were you the one who's writing all the algorithms behind the scenes, or is there a bunch of people who are doing it?
So it's myself and a co-founder. That's
Okay.
the core team. We have a couple of people around that are doing this on a part-time basis. So the great thing here is that there's very minimal coding involved.
Hmm.
So we use the Salesforce platform. I used to work at Salesforce, so I know all about the strength and everything. And Salesforce is really for business users,
Right.
not necessarily developers. And the great thing is you can just drag and drop and create that kind of community that you want to make without, as you say, yes, we have algorithms, absolutely. But instead of creating 100 algorithms and writing that, now you only need 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a huge time saver for us.
Well, that's amazing. So what you're saying is you're using Salesforce, their platform, and then you're programming it to customize it for your own needs, right?
Exactly.
All right. Are there any other platforms? Because Salesforce is kind of expensive. I mean, don't mind me saying this.
So your question is if there are any other platforms that do this?
Yeah, exactly.
There, yes. You obviously have Google Cloud Platform, major player, but in GCP you kind of have to build a lot of those algorithms yourself, as opposed to Salesforce, which is almost plug and play. I would say almost 70% plug and play, 30% kind of code. I would say Microsoft does something similar, though on paper every company does the same. IBM, Oracle, they all do it. Even Zoho does that, right? But when you really dive deeper, and I don't mean to be salesy, but I was a salesperson at Salesforce, so I kind of know about the differences here, and I can tell you that building on Salesforce is not the same as building on any other solution.
Okay. And I completely relate to that because Salesforce has been in the business for so long, and they are such innovators and inventors. I remember one case study I read about a decade ago when they talked about how they celebrate sales at Salesforce. So the moment there is some sales happening or somebody makes a new sale or something, so the entire office, there's this music which is played in the background and everyone just stands up and claps or does something. It's a celebration shared by everyone. So, do you think culture matters a lot in today's, startups, or is it more transactional?
Culture. I would say culture is 80%, even 90%. Obviously, you need to have a great product, or you need to have a great solution. People need to want to sell that and want to buy that and engage with that. But if you have a culture that's very, as you say, very transactional, and if you focus only on revenue coming in or increasing your profit margin as much as possible, that's not an attractive culture to be in. And especially the generation, your millennials like us, they look for something beyond salary alone. Money is, yes, it's definitely a driver, but let's say money is a driver until here, right? And how do you get here? That's what implementing the right culture. That's what a lot of tech companies now are doing really, really well. And again, Salesforce is a great example of that. But not just Salesforce, a lot of smaller startups and scale-ups are great at doing that. And you definitely see that there's some, let's call them traditional companies, a couple of, let's say insurance agencies. Some of those are amazing and have really gone into that culture transformation. But you also have a few who really kind of stay behind and are reluctant to innovate because it's this new scary thing. But this is what the new generation needs and wants. That is how you attract talent. So I would absolutely say culture is everything.
Wow. So I completely subscribe to that thought process. But then the question arises in Minute, which is actually a very transactional business process, because I think that's one of the USPs, that you just come here, you do the thing, and you forget about everything else. How do you maintain culture with your freelance students? And the batch keeps changing every year, I'm assuming, right?
So that's a really good question. So you say, the batch changes every year. Actually, we try to involve students from day one. So that means in the summer, we recruit the people that are going to start their first year in university. Now, in the Netherlands, the average bachelor takes 3 years. People do a master, maybe you take a gap year. Even if you take a gap year, you can be on the other side of the world and still perform remote work with us. So the average student stays 5 years with Minute, which is great because at some point they become kind of experts, right, at something. Look, I'm really good at marketing content. Look at me. Look at all the 5-star reviews that I got. So this is a great example of kind of training students, if you will, because we definitely do a proper onboarding training. How do you communicate with clients? Because for many students, this is the first time ever interacting with SMEs, and you need to do that in a certain way, right? So we teach them how to do that. We bring in experts. For example, if there is an SME that needs I need something done on LinkedIn, manage our page. we'll bring in a LinkedIn expert, an employee or an ex-employee, give them the proper training, like proper tools and handles, right? A student does that for, let's say, a project of 6 months. Sometimes it's a project for a year, even 2 years. These things happen. After 2 years, that student is an expert in LinkedIn, increases his hourly rate. Maybe after he graduates, he may want to move into a full-time position with that SME who now knows him, and there's no risk anymore in hiring this person. And you talk a lot about culture, how you keep the culture with those freelancers, if you will. They are freelancers. Yeah, we like to call them students, flex workers. Really our staff. They're our staff, and they're not just. These are not independent contractors. You know what I mean? Because I think the structure of independent contractors, and that's what you see a lot in today's economy, that creates a divide, a huge divide between students. They become competitors, but also strangers. They're not colleagues. There's no proper culture there. So we do that very differently. That starts the way, how you contract these students. They're our staff. Flexible staff, yes. Temporary, yes. Independent contractors, no.
Okay.
No, and so we do a lot of, let's get together Friday afternoon, choose whether you want to join or not, and let's talk about this. Talk about your project. Obviously, we'll always have to ask for, we'll have to ask that SME, that client, permission to discuss that on the Friday. We'll just go through best practices. We have a Slack group. We communicate together. Hey, guys, I'm stuck with this. Can anybody help me? Hey, this is what I'm working on now. Oh, that is so cool. Do you want to grab a coffee and talk about that? A virtual coffee. So those are some of the ways in which we try to keep the culture good, strong, warm, which is definitely challenging when you have a 100% remote workforce. But we're getting there.
That is so interesting, especially in these times. If you're able to crack this to a certain extent, and have more success as compared to all the other companies, especially IT companies, they are suffering a lot because of the work from home issue. They're not able to maintain the culture. Managers are micromanaging people. They're trying to extract more productivity for some reasons. At least this is happening in India, and it's a really dire situation. People can't speak up against it, otherwise they'll lose their jobs. So, how do you manage to engage these flex student workers working at Minute with you guys to have a natural human bonding in those Friday sessions that you hold? How do you manage to do that? What kind of engagement do you bring in?
Here's the thing that I find is really important. You talk about micromanagement, right? And a lot of IT companies not fully understanding that shift to remote. Remote work is not a temporary thing. Yes, we're going through a pandemic and we need to work remote, but long after it's gone, remote working is still going to stay there. You see a lot of companies like Twitter and Facebook are saying, hey, employees, respect as well. You can work from home permanently wherever you want, whenever you want. These are amazing advancements. Now, I think that for a lot of those managers that are micromanaging, they feel that they have to micromanage because I used to see these people in the office and I used to be able to see, my team of 20 people, exactly what they're doing whenever they're on the phone. But now you can't do that anymore. So they feel the need to I need to have some sort of control over what's happening. I believe that this is temporary, and you see it more often in the companies that are not familiar with remote work yet, but are, as I said before, forced into that digital transformation. So they find that scary. But I definitely believe that as time passes, even the worst micromanagers will move on into a more of a relaxed, less engaged approach, which is the exact same approach as we're taking with Minute. If you need help as a student, we're always there for you. We have those resources. You're never alone. But if you say, hey, it's working really well and the client is happy too, then by all means, do what you want, however I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I believe that you should learn that yourself, and along the way, you become an expert yourself. You can teach me, actually. Students learn so fast.
Right.
Another thing is that, this is Generation Z, right? So they're born with the digital age, all the social media, little kids that are on TikTok. It's not something that I would encourage, but the great thing about that is that remote work to them is so natural.
All right.
And when we have that Friday afternoon virtual drink, people just engage with each other because they do it in university as well. Everybody's forced to do their assignments from home through Zoom, through whichever channel, and it works. So for them, it's only natural that we would extend that into a part-time job kind of thing. And for them, it's like, why would I go to a bar and meet with my fellow students when I can save time and do that from home? Obviously, you don't want to do that 100% of the time. It will be great if people are in the same location and once every few months you organize something, but the core of it is doing that remote.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I definitely have had my share of, virtual drinking parties during the coronavirus lockdown. It's not the same, and probably I don't want it to be the same because I belong to probably an older generation where I just want to, sit with my friends and have that privacy of that ambience and surroundings. Um, so, Mickey, one more question about this. Community learning is something which is going to be the future, according to me, wherein people who are separated by geographical distances or time zones, but they interact at the same platform, and they share things which the others can see whenever they get time, and they are kind of updated in that way. They're used to that way, so that community helps them in growing. Workspace by Facebook was something which started a few years back. They started doing this, and now you see all these small little ERP and CRM companies coming up like Confluence. They're just integrating, Slack and Trello and everything in one. Um, what I want to ask is, what are some of the things that you, as a potential customer of all these, companies, would want them to make? What are the things that you need but are still not available?
I really like that question. What do I need but is still not available? When it comes down to it, I'm looking for one platform, not looking to buy 20 different tools and standalone silos that you somehow need to integrate. No,
Yeah.
that's every company's biggest nightmare. And as we have more smaller companies pop up with something new, or as you said, it may be ERP or CRM, but something different, maybe a niche product that needs to be integrated with another system. Headache, time, money, effort. It's no. So the base of everything would be single platform.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not these are 10 different solutions that all work seamlessly on that platform, I really don't care. I don't need to buy all of my products from Oracle or from IBM as long as that ERP from Oracle works seamlessly with whichever solutions I want to use. And, some of those solutions are very, very industry specific, so they are a little bit smaller. And I think that's a huge challenge for those startups and scale-ups to make sure that you can integrate with the big players. And again, it's not easy, right, to kind of facilitate these integrations, but it's certainly not something that a customer wants to do. Nobody wants to be the first to integrate between a startup solution and a big IBM or a big Oracle. You need to make sure these things are in place.
Okay,
I think in terms of, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you because I think there's an interesting activity which we can do so that our viewers understand what we're exactly talking about, the complications. So, Mickey, I want you to list all the different small little apps, software, web-enabled apps that you use to manage your business. All right, list them down one by one.
So I use Slack, Trello. I can't say which CRM I'm using. Confidential. I use a company called Exact for accounting. What else do we have?
Your email server, come on.
Obviously G Suite. I'm using G Suite. I use
Communications, which one do you use? Zoom?
a mix of actually Google Meet. I use a lot of Google Meet. I use Zoom as well whenever.
We are
I
using
used to use
Skype.
Shopify.
Sorry?
Obviously, we're using Skype. I used to be on Shopify. I moved away from that.
Oh,
recently.
yes, of course, Shopify. Then?
Let me think. I think that's about all I can think of right now. A lot of Slack. A lot
Okay.
of collaboration happens in Slack, yeah.
So I counted 8, all right? I'm just going to round it up to 10. That you use 10 different platforms for your daily business needs. All right, let me count mine. I use Google. All right, so I'm just going to put everything in Google, like Drive and Meet and Mail, obviously. Then I use YouTube for a lot of my business purposes. Then I use Zoho, the CRM provided by Zoho, and Zoho Social. Then I use Trello, Slack. Um, I've recently started using another community-based software. It is Workplace by Facebook, and I think there are a couple of more. So again, I have around 7, 8. And managing these 7, 8 accounts is itself a nightmare. What are the challenges that you face when you have to manage all these things?
Oh my God, all of that siloed information. What information is where, and when was that put in there? Is that still relevant? Do I need that tomorrow? Do I need it ever? That's very difficult. Now, Slack obviously has amazing functionalities in that, you can add Zoom into Slack, so you just do it there. My Google Calendar is in Slack now as well. So that's why Slack for us is definitely the number one tool when it comes to doing almost everything. But it's still not a CRM, right? It's still not an ERP. It's still not your accounting. So you still, I can condense that into, you probably condense it into 4 different solutions. That's still 4 different tools that you need to go into. It's too much. It should be one platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think people have understood the complexities. Now, moving on to the next question, Mickey. So you have a bunch of projects going on, ventures, startups, companies. I want to know what you call them. So, and does that make you a serial entrepreneur, or does that make you a simultaneous entrepreneur?
So I currently have 3 projects that I'm involved in full time. I'm not a serial entrepreneur because I don't fully exit a company. Not a simultaneous one either because I definitely don't devote the same kind of resources to every project. Now, okay, that might not be the perfect definition of a simultaneous entrepreneur, but that's what it is to me. So the way I work, I have an idea. Well, I have a million of ideas. My head is always bursting with things. It's very chaotic. But I have this whiteboard, and I just draw out everything that I think of. And then I try to validate ideas. Let's just say I have literally 10 ideas a day pop up in my head. That's very annoying because you need to create some sort of structure and focus in your mind, which is why I need to write it down. So I'll try to validate some of those ideas. I spend a lot of time on actual market research, interviewing people, reading articles, reading literatures, all these kind of things. Out of that comes a project which started with Boxy. So I designed baby clothes, kind of your baby shower gift, but everything is gender neutral. So no pink, no blue. No pink, no blue. Very, very firm on that. Equality is very important there. That's really a passion project. I love doing that. Now, after a few months, that was, I wouldn't say, it was stable and it was, we've got like a ton of profit left and right. Absolutely not. But it was stable enough in the sense that it didn't need my 100% attention and nurturing anymore. And I could move away from that slowly. So that happened after 6 months. And then I thought, hey, I want to do something on the side as well because here's another idea that I've been having over the last few months. Why not? And when you start out with something, it's always something very small. But as you implement it, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, oh gosh, I need to really condense this. So I created this corporate gifting service called the Happiness Project. Very simply put, you need a gift for your clients or your employees or partners, anybody, for Christmas or for Chinese New Year's, whichever occasion. But you don't want to give the bottle of champagne, wine, food, these kind of things. It's not fun. And they're very expensive as well. So I make something it's tailor-made to your company, to your brand. You tell me what's the messaging. You tell me more about your identity. I'll have a call with you. And based off of that, I create something very unique, very original with a custom graphic design as well. So I thought this would be very fun as a side project. Another side project, let's do 70% Boxy and 30% of the Happiness Project. And it didn't quite work like that, as I think every startup owner will know. Because when you think you can devote less resources on Boxy, you're like, I actually need to do this because we're going to implement a new marketing campaign. So let me devote the coming week to Boxy. But then you're like, oh gosh, but the Happiness Project needs this and this and this and this. So you end up working a lot of hours, which is what I did for a good couple of months until I said, no, I'm not going to, this is not a proper way. It's not the most efficient way of working. Let me condense that because, and I'm sure you know that as well, right? As a startup owner, your work is never done.
No.
You can work 1,000 hours if you could. It
Yeah.
was even humanly possible, and it's still not finished. So accepting that and coming to terms with that made me understand this is a priority. This is not. If it's not a priority, is it ever going to be a priority? In the next 3 months? No. Drop it. Don't do it. You do not have to answer to every single person. I used to answer to every single person that would email me, and a lot of those are just, selling random things that I don't need. But I would take the time to be like, thank you so much for your time, unfortunately, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Useless. Drop it. If it doesn't help the business in the next 6 months, do not engage with that. Sounds harsh, but you have to do that because there's just too much to do. When I finally managed that time, if you will, I started a third project, which is Minute, obviously. And Minute now takes a lot of my time, good 70-80%. But again, it fluctuates every day. So I don't know if there's a word for an entrepreneur like myself.
I'm going to call you simultaneous entrepreneur. I like that term.
Call me a simultaneous entrepreneur, sure.
Because I am pretty much the same that way. I'm managing a bunch of projects with different timelines, with different teams, all based, across the world. And it's crazy. It just gets crazy sometimes. So, but it's exciting at the same time, right?
It's very exciting.
Great.
It takes a special kind of energy, Sarah.
Absolutely.
You understand that.
So, Mickey, you come from a multi-ethnic background. Tell us about that and also tell us how it has impacted you in becoming the Mickey Chen that we know right now.
Right. So I was born in Nepal. My mom is Nepalese. My dad is Chinese. We moved to the Netherlands. We immigrated to the Netherlands when I was very, very young. Grew up there, went through the entire education system there. Then I went to Taiwan for my bachelor exchange. Then I went to California to do research for my master's thesis. By that time, I really had that kind of travel bug. You know what I mean? Not in the sense of 2 weeks to Bali, but really kind of I want to live abroad, build a life there, and see how it works out. Because it worked out in Taiwan and in the States, why wouldn't it work out now? So when I graduated, started my first job in Dublin, Ireland. Had never even been to, I didn't even know about Ireland. I just thought about sheep, a lot of sheep, and really good beef, and that's all I knew. And I didn't even bother to do any kind of research. As a 23, I just hopped on the plane, accepted my job offer, and just built a life there, which was amazing. It was amazing. I stayed there for 5 years. And then I was like, I'm very comfortable here, so it would make sense for me to stay here, buy a unit, and live the rest of my days very happily. But again, travel bug. I'm comfortable here. Let me make myself uncomfortable by moving to the next country that I don't know. And that's how I ended up in Singapore a year and a half ago. Wow. So that's my background. That's my story. Yeah.
So how has that, travel bug and also coming from these two rich, cultures, how has that made Mickey the Mickey that we know?
So, I think something that a lot of people don't know when I speak with them is that the culture of Nepal versus the culture of China, these are two different worlds. And that's sort of, you're Indian. And so you obviously know that Nepal culture is much, much closer to India than to any other country in this world, right? Even our language is, Hindi is very, very similar to Nepali. We eat the same food, same traditions. Almost everything I would probably say is one-on-one as far as, you can make a comparison with another country. But Nepal versus China is this.
Yes.
It's literally that. Because Nepal is a small country and now it's kind of up and coming as a cool mountain climbing holiday destination. People are becoming more knowledgeable of it. But when I was younger, nobody knew that. So they just assumed that I was Chinese, right? Which I am. Yeah, absolutely. I'm half Chinese. But what does it mean to have cultures that diverge so much from each other and grow up, literally split in between, and then growing up in an environment, the Netherlands, which is again a culture that is all the way there. This is China. This is Nepal. This is Netherlands. And here's me. So you grew up with a lot of different influences, which is amazing. We celebrate Chinese New Year's at home. And my grandmother, she taught me how to make the Chinese dumplings. And those dumplings we have in Nepal as well. We call them momos.
Momos.
So my grandmother taught me how to make those Nepali style momos and with the Nepali sauce and everything. This is a small thing, but it says a lot. A dumpling is a very, very simple example, but a dumpling in Nepal and a dumpling in China are two different things, two different stories, two different traditions, cultures, right? We spoke a bunch of different languages at home. So my mom, she always speaks Nepali to us. I actually went to Chinese school to improve my Mandarin because my dad also speaks Nepali. So he'll speak a mix of Nepali, Dutch, and English at home. And so me and my sister were just a bunch of everything. But you grow up with all those different kind of cultures. And so when we talked last semester, I talked about Play-Doh. And that's a great example here, I think. I'm not one specific color of Play-Doh. I think nobody really is. But when you take, not just personality, but really look at it from an ethnical point of view, then I am three colors of Play-Doh into one. You don't see that very often, and that, for some people, that leads to an identity crisis, right? You never fully belong anywhere. You belong a little bit everywhere. For example, when we always celebrate Nepali New Year in Amsterdam with the whole Nepali family in the Netherlands, and I don't look like a typical Nepali person. But then I also don't look like a typical Chinese person, so I would go to those Nepali holiday, and people would speak in English to me because they didn't think that I was from Nepal or that I spoke Nepali. And they're always so surprised. Same token, I go to China to visit my family, and people look at me and they're like, I can't place it. I'm not really Chinese. What are you? What are you? So yeah, these are the small things I would say in life, but this is my everyday situation. Every time when I go outside and I meet somebody, it's always the same story. And so coming back to the Play-Doh analogy, once you have that kind of culture, and Taiwan is also part of that, right? The US is also a part of that. So now you have 5 different cultures. And then Ireland comes into play. So this Play-Doh is never finished, right? As it is for nobody. And you also have a very colorful Play-Doh yourself. But the sooner you accept that and really embrace it, understand that you belonging nowhere, but at the same time belong a little bit of everywhere. And my partner is actually French. So that's another color added to that Play-Doh. The sooner you accept that, the quicker you can identify with other people, identify with businesses. Mm-hmm. It broadens your scope, the way you think, the way we feel, coming from all of those countries, but also having immigrated to a country that we didn't even know about the Netherlands. We didn't even know this country even existed, this tiny country on the map. And that is now my home, and I now consider myself Dutch. These things, they're a huge advantage, and it's always in the back of my mind. I use it everywhere I go. I think about that Play-Doh. How am I going to utilize that Play-Doh today? This is unique. This is really my unique selling point. Nobody else has this, so let's use it to my advantage.
Wow, that's an amazing answer. So quick question, Mickey, which is your favorite holiday? Is it the Chinese New Year, Dashain, or is it Christmas? I'm assuming that Christmas is big in the Netherlands.
That's a good question. I did not want to hurt any of my parents. So I may say Christmas.
Okay. That's a very well put, diplomatically correct answer. Okay. That's interesting, and I'm going to touch upon something important that you mentioned earlier about an identity crisis. So in 2016, I was in Denmark, and I got invited to a friend's place for dinner, and he had invited some of his other friends. There was one girl from, well, that's the question, where was she from? So there was one girl, and I met her, and I asked her, so, hey, hi, how are you? I'm Saurabh, I'm from India. What about you? And she said, hi, I'm so-and-so. And I'm from Kenya. I said, oh, wow, Kenya, amazing. I want to visit that place. But then she said, yeah, but I was only in Kenya till the time I was 5. I said, and since then, where have you been? He said, then my parents immigrated to Belgium, so I have Belgian citizenship. I said, okay. And then she said, after high school, I went to Australia for a college exchange program. And there I got got into a lot of racial dispute because I was working in a supermarket and the Ab Originals in Australia are not supposed to work for the white man, and I was considered, so that created a problem for me. And I got more confused, and I was like, okay, so why are you identifying yourself as a Kenyan? And she said, well, then I went back to the UK, and everyone asked me the question, and I would say Belgium, and they would say, no, where are you originally from? And then I would just say Kenya. And now I want to be, I mean, that's not what she said verbatim, but you understand what I'm trying to get here. So there was this long conversation, and I just kept getting confused. And it was not because of what I could not understand, it was because of what she could not explain. So, how does that translate when you are in such a situation, which is very similar to your situation, I think, because your parents immigrated to a new country altogether? Does that happen often? And how do you counter it? How do you manage it?
I think that's a really good question. Identity crisis is not something that I think is easily pointed out. Although that's when I had a crisis, and here I had a crisis as well, and this was not a crisis. That's difficult. But the first thing that comes to mind is me in primary school. So I grew up in the north of Netherlands, which is a very conservative area. There's not a lot of, let's say, non-ethnic Dutch, non-ethnic white people, if you will, in that area. But we never felt less or more, for that matter. We were always accepted exactly the way we were, which is unique. It's very, very unique because here you have the only Asian family in that village. It was a small village, and everybody accepted us. So that was amazing, coming from Nepal and not understanding the language at all. I learned Dutch on the street. Actually, my dad told me to just go outside and play and just tap a Dutch girl and just be like, hi, because that's all I could say in Dutch. So that's how I learned my Dutch. My dad wanted me to be fluent before I would go to primary school. But we moved, when I was 8, we moved to a big city, a huge city, which was multicultural, which we thought was a great thing. But when I came there and I enrolled in primary school, I was very different, and I felt very different. And people would make fun of me, and probably because I was the new girl, which is fine. But it didn't stop. It didn't stop until I left primary school to move into high school. And that's the very first time that I thought, hey, maybe I'm not like these other kids, but I don't fully understand why I'm not like these other kids. So they'd make a lot of remarks about my appearance, telling me to go back to my country. Just these kind of, they're hurtful comments, and as a child, you don't understand because I grew up in the Netherlands, and I've been there since I was very, very young. So I never felt that I was any less Dutch than the next kid in class, but they made me feel like I was. And I just moved on and on and on from there, and at some point, it turns into bullying. And I don't like saying that word, and it's really hard when you are a 7-year-old kid in primary school, and you don't realize that you're getting bullied. You only know that you're crying every day because people are calling you names. And it starts with racist things, but then it moves on to something very, very different. So now it's just bullying altogether, right? That's a difficult thing, and that makes you question yourself, where you come from. I never wanted to be different. That's one thing that my parents taught me. We come from Nepal, we come from China, and we're so proud of that. You are a Dutch kid, but you're going to speak Mandarin, you're going to speak Nepali, and you're going to be really close with everybody's family. You're going to meet them every summer. Let's keep those cultures close, though, because you can be a third culture kid, well, literally 3 cultures. You can really have all of that together, and we shouldn't ever feel that, I want to be fully Dutch, if you will, and I want to have Dutch parents and a Dutch family, and I only want to speak Dutch at home. So I never felt that way. That's why it was even more confusing for me that people in primary school did things in that manner, if you get me. And when I moved to high school, it was better. It was a lot better. Well, I partied with the whole class. Which for me was a new beginning. And I was like, it's going to be a great 6 years. I am not Dutch, and I am Dutch. Everything I'm going to be really proud of that I am Play-Doh, giving myself the kind of pep talk on my first day of high school. I am Play-Doh. That's what makes me unique. Let's use it. And I came into high school and it was amazing. Yes, there were a couple of kids that had a different ethnicity. It didn't matter. It didn't matter for anybody. I never got a single racist remark in high school, which made me think I was just part of a very rotten batch in primary school. This doesn't define the Netherlands. Obviously, it doesn't define the average person. I was just unlucky to be in that batch of primary school kids. But then at the same time, lucky that they didn't go to my class in high school and our paths crossed, and I was able to not our paths diverged, and I didn't have to see these people ever again.
Yeah. I completely agree with that and relate to it actually, since I've lived out of India now, so I can understand, the reaction that people have, and I think it's a pretty natural reaction for a human being to react by looking at someone who just looks different, speaks different, and so many other things. At the same time, as you rightly said, it's not a very generic, or it's not a generalization. It's not the right thing to say that the entire community of people is racist or anything like that. So in Denmark as well, it's such a nice country, very progressive, very inspiring in a lot of ways. And I once faced racism while I was in a train, and there were these bunch of high school kids who were just drunk. Okay, so that doesn't define the people of Denmark, because they are not like that, right? So, but it does exist. At the same time, you suddenly realize, okay, so this is it cannot always be this fairy tale. There are these things which happen, and they happen to me as well. And I think all the countries in the world are racist to a certain extent, because that's just a human reaction. So I think it's a human problem and not really a particular country's problem. Although I'm not trying to simplify what's going on in the world right now.
Right, I
I'm not
agree.
trying to do that. But I think it's deeply rooted into whoever has more influence and power. They kind of use it against people who have less. And racism, casteism, communalism are just tools for these people to do that.
I agree with you 200%. You hit the nail on the head.
Awesome. And that is where my next question will come from, Mickey. So we've seen that I'm living in this really hot and humid Punjab region of India, and you're in Singapore, but we connect so seamlessly on a lot of our viewpoints. Do you think this also translates from, traveling a lot? Do you think you can connect more easily to people who have been around more than others?
Yes, I think it's easy, and same for you, right? You've been all over the world, and you've been in Japan, and all of these experiences make you a very colorful Play-Doh, right? It's easy for people with 10 colors of Play-Doh to connect with people with the same kind of colors, right?
Mm.
The same amount of colors, rather than someone who is born and raised in one specific village. Let's name the extreme end. That's not to say that we can't connect with those people that have been in the village for 80 years. Of course we can. That's again another unique point of people like you and you have been all over the world, kind of global citizens, if you will. Find that a funny word, but yeah, we are, right? We definitely are. A lot of people are, increasingly more so. And it becomes so much easier to find points to talk about. So, you could, let's take you as an example. I could put you in South Africa with a bunch of people that you've never heard of, you've never met them. And I'm sure that you could stir up an amazing conversation with each and every one of them. And all of those people would think, wow, Sarah really understands me. This is amazing. I connect with everybody. Right? So yeah, it's a lot easier to make conversation with everybody and just have that seamless interaction. Absolutely.
Why do you think we are like that? Why do you think we are able to do that? What are these qualities that we have?
That's a really good question. You probably have to go back to the root of it all. Why do we travel?
Mm.
Why do we leave our country? Because you can go on holiday and you can still be living in India and and deciding that you want to spend the rest of your life in India, which is great. For some people, well, actually a lot of people that all of my friends are these kind of global nomads, citizens, all of that. And we have a lot of conversations about these things. And more often than not, there's always a sort of feel that comes with not fully belonging somewhere, which is a great thing because it makes you curious about the outside world. I'll actually give my partner as a very clear example. So he's French, born and raised. Very, very French is what you would think when you hear his background, but he grew up in this very small, remote village. And he didn't want to be in that village because he found that people were very like-minded there. Even if he grew up there, he was like, no, there has to be something else, something different. So he moved to Paris to study there, and then he was like, this is amazing. I want to do this. So he moved to Mumbai for a year to work there. And then he moved to Shanghai for 2 years. And then he moved to Ireland, and that's where we met. And now we're in Singapore. So it all comes with the realization you do not have to be an immigrant, or you do not, for him it started when he was, 20, 22. These realizations can come at any stage in life. It doesn't make you any less of a global citizen or a digital nomad. It's that realization of, hey, I love where I am right now, but I'm so curious. Let's see what else there is, because I feel like I'm maybe missing out on something amazing. It's always the people who, you try it once and then you're like, this is amazing. Gonna do this again.
Awesome. So I call this a phenomenon. I mean, I love giving labels, even though I should not because I've studied psychology. So I give labels to everything. I cannot give labels. I don't give labels to human beings, but everything else I give labels to. I love doing that. I call this the global nomadic entrepreneur phenomena. All right. So there are these people like you and me and Jim who connected us. Who are just willing to go out of their country, leave all that comfort behind, and just explore, struggle, and live life in a much more wholesome way, I guess. I mean, it's just all there, right? What does a global entrepreneur like yourself, global nomadic entrepreneur like yourself, need in a country to succeed? What infrastructure ecosystem do you want to see in the next destination, if there is a next destination for you? Where and what would you like to see?
This is a really good question, and at the same time, I feel like, do I want to see a specific infrastructure or ecosystem? I actually don't think so. I honestly don't think so. When I moved to Ireland, I knew that this was a big expat bubble. And so I knew that, it's going to be very easy for me to build a life there. And same in Singapore, it's such a melting pot. But then I think, do I want to move to Toronto next, which is also a huge expat bubble? Do I want to, move to those big cities, London, where I know that it's going to be great? Or would I also be okay with moving to name a random city in the world? Anyway,
so I was having a discussion about Cairo yesterday, so I'm going to talk about Cairo.
Cairo. Let's say Cairo. Should that be my next opportunity? Why not? Why not? Isn't that the coolest part? Settling down in a place where there are no expats, or where there's no huge expat bubble, not a massive city for foreigners. I think that's amazing. So at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about a certain infrastructure, certain ecosystem. You probably start with that, right? And obviously for my business, I have to take these things into consideration. But once you're kind of familiar with it, feel comfortable with building a life in a place where you know nobody, I think it becomes very, very easy. So as long as you take that drive with you, that thought process of, it doesn't matter, you can put me anywhere, put me on a hill, put me on a mountain in Nepal, and I'll become friends with the Sherpas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And I realize this, that I need to be ready for any kind of situation or place that I'm going to. So my entire office had to fit in my backpack, and my backpack could not be more than 5 kilograms. So that was a limit I set for myself. So my laptop had to be that specification. I cannot carry a lot of textbooks or diaries. I cannot carry a lot of extra stuff. It was just limited to that. And I think that's what we guys do, right? We take up our backpack and just go anywhere and start working. Awesome. All right,
I
Mickey.
actually love that what you said. That's amazing. I think 5 kilos is extreme. I don't know if I could do that, but
Oh, you
yeah,
can.
limited 20 kilo, I would say.
No, 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 no. Not 20 kilos. Come on. You can do it in 5 kilograms. I know you can. All right. Next question said, Mickey. Um, so we're talking about, global nomadic entrepreneurs. And why do you think that global nomadic entrepreneurs are going to be better at solving the world's problems than other people?
Sensitive question. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because when you look at the stats, and when I look at myself and fellow, let's call them immigrants, fellow immigrants, I say yes. But I also say no, because is there any scientific evidence for us being better at something? I don't think so. No, there's not. There's very little literature that you can find about that. So I find it very difficult to give, a definitive yes or no. But I'll tell you why I'm leaning more towards the yes. And that's really my personal experience. I think that us coming from a country like Nepal into an amazing country like the Netherlands, which, I mean, it's a first world country, it's amazing. Compared to Nepal, the opportunities there are just immense. In the Netherlands, if you're a smart kid, you're going to go places.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nepal, unfortunately, it's not always the same case, right?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of mindset that my parents have always taught me. Understand how great it is for you to be here and for you to grow up in this education system. You're not behind on any kid. Don't feel like you're behind on anybody. You work hard for things, and you can do anything you want and be anyone that you want, right? And I'm certain that, every parent says that to their kids. But with immigrant parents, there is a different meaning behind it. There's a certain kind of weight behind that statement. And it's a great kind of weight, right? It's a driver. It's really, this is my intrinsic driver, has been for everything in my life. And it's the reason why I want to do this and I want to do better and be better and take on another project and another one. It's a certain sense of wanting to prove yourself. Hey, I did come to the Netherlands, and yeah, I'm not from here, but you know what? Look at what I can do. Look at, our family is not a liability. We're an amazing asset to this country. Look at us. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be defined by, this is an immigrant and they're stirring up trouble kind of things. I don't agree with that at all. But that's, some countries feel about immigrants in a certain way, and it's hard to change people's opinion. The only thing you can do is be better yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's something that has been really important. Now, when you talk about being an entrepreneur and having immigrated to the other side of, or having your parents immigrate there, again, it's that kind of weight. It's perspective, because I understand fully what's happening in Nepal. I see it. And some things are very sad, some things are very frustrating. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to build a school in Nepal. That doesn't mean I'm going to build a school in Nepal, no. But it does mean that I'm going to use that as fuel to make my life and my startup the best that I can be, so that I can give back to my country, whatever ways, whatever form that may come. And the same with China, and the same with even something as Taiwan in the US. Yes, absolutely first world country, but you still see and understand the way people live there, but also the kind of challenges that this society has, because every society has issues. Challenges, let's call them challenges, is better. The question, what are you going to do about it? And being exposed to all of those different kind of cultures, I think that's a call to action, right? You have been in so many places in the world. Now, what are you going to do about it? Or are you just going to see that as a fun personal experience? So in that sense, yeah, I absolutely think that people that travel a lot and live all over the place are better suited, just because they seem to have a deeper understanding of the challenges in that specific area. And you don't have to be related, like you don't have to come from Nepal to understand what is happening in Nepal. But if you live there for 6 months, then you understand, and that's a call to action to want to do better.
That's very nicely put. Call to action. And I always maintain this, and it's actually a fact that humans are experiential learners. All right, we suck at learning from what our ancestors did. Whatever mistakes they did, we are better. We will do it on our own. And I think it is the experience, it's part of the experience when, people like you and me and so many others, they move around the world and they actually see it with their eyes, the differences, the similarities, the issues, how they are acting out. So you genuinely, authentically, feel towards it and you understand that, okay, this is something which needs to be solved. So you're one step closer to solving that than the rest of the people, locally, because well, that's exactly what's happening with climate change. Most of the local populations don't really care about it unless it is harming them very, very deeply. Well,
Right.
thank you so much, Mickey, for this amazing conversation. And as you saw, guys, Mickey is this, box full of energy. She's a boxy of energy.
I like
And
it.
so she's continuing going to do a lot of amazing things. I'm going to mention all the links related to Mickey and her various projects in the description below. Any questions you have, please mention. Please don't forget to subscribe to me on YouTube. I'm also putting all my podcasts on Facebook now, so there's a separate playlist you can subscribe to over there. And well, that's it. Please provide us feedback. Well, Mickey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really enjoyed this.